The galaxy was ancient. Stars had been born and had died long before Earth had even formed from dust. Civilizations had risen, fought, and then learned to live under one banner, the Galactic Council. To most species, the Council was not just a government. It was order. It was stability. It was survival. The Council had written laws so strict that even the most powerful empires bowed to them. Every world was required to follow the same codes: how to trade, how to fight, how to speak, between nations. Every war was monitored. Every dispute was settled by the Council. It had been this way for thousands of years, and no one dared to defy it. No one, until humanity was found. When explorers first stumbled across Earth, the Council was curious. Humans were a young race. They had barely touched the stars. Their technology was new, their history short compared to the vast ages of the galaxy. Yet when the Council studied them, something unsettled the Elders. The Elders were the oldest beings in the galaxy. They had seen countless species rise and fall. They recognized danger long before others. And when they looked at humanity, they saw a fire they had not seen in ages. "These humans will not obey," one elder whispered in the council chambers. "They will not kneel," another warned. "They will break what we have built," said a third. But the council laughed at them. "Every race resists at first," the younger leaders replied. "But in time they bend. They all bend. Humanity will be no different." The elders shook their heads, but no one listened. The first contact came quietly. A fleet of the council's silver ships descended above Earth, their hulls glowing like blades against the night sky. Across the world, humans looked up in awe and fear. The visitors brought promises of peace, safety, and unity, but also rules. Rules humans were expected to follow without question. The council demanded obedience. They explained that humanity was too young to stand alone in the galaxy. They spoke as though Earth was a child in need of discipline. Their words were sharp, but coated with false kindness. The leaders of Earth listened. They sat across great tables of steel and glass, their faces serious, their hearts beating fast. Humanity had always dreamed of reaching the stars, but now the stars had come to them, and they came with chains. When the council finished speaking, silence filled the room. Everyone waited for Earth's answer. The human leaders looked at one, another, then at the alien envoys. And then they laughed. The laughter was not cruel, but it carried a weight of defiance. The council representatives were stunned. No one had ever dared to laugh in their presence. One human stood, his voice steady and clear. "Why should we follow rules written by strangers who have never walked on our soil? Why should we bow to laws we did not write? We are not children. We are not weak. We make our own way." The council delegation shifted uncomfortably. They warned Earth of punishment. They reminded humanity of the fleets, the armies, the overwhelming power of the council. But the humans did not look afraid. Their eyes burned with something the council had forgotten long ago: pride. Finally, the human leaders gave their answer. "We will not follow," they said. "We will not kneel." When the words were carried back to the council, outrage filled the chambers. Every other species in the galaxy had obeyed. Every one of them had accepted the chains. But humanity, young and fragile, dared to say no. The elders lowered their heads. They had warned the others. Now, the storm had begun. And in the quiet of space, Earth stood unbent, one small world daring to defy an entire galaxy. The silver ships of the Galactic Council hovered in Earth's sky like silent predators. Their smooth hulls reflected the sun, shining so bright that millions of humans could see them with the naked eye. Across the world, people stopped in the streets, stepped out of their homes, and pointed upward with fear and wonder. Humanity had dreamed of aliens for centuries, but no one had imagined the meeting would come like this. The Council called it a mission of peace. They told Earth that war and chaos could be avoided if humanity joined the galactic order. They said, humanity must follow the codes of conduct written long before Earth had even discovered fire. They spoke of rules that decided who could trade, who could fight, who could even speak on the great stage of the galaxy. To them, these rules were not a choice. They were law. The human leaders gathered quickly. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, and scientists sat around tables in secret chambers, their voices heavy with worry. For the first time in history, all nations of Earth stood together, facing a single question: should humanity kneel? The council's ambassador stood tall, his skin glowing faintly under the lights of the meeting hall. His voice was sharp, cold, like metal against stone. "You are fortunate," he said. "The council gives you a place in the galaxy. You will follow our codes. You will send tribute. You will obey our fleets. If you resist, you will face destruction." The words echoed across the hall. No one spoke at first. The weight of the threat pressed down like iron chains. Every other species the council had met had bowed at this point. Resistance was impossible, or so the galaxy believed. But humanity was not like the others. The silence was broken by a low sound, a chuckle, then another. Then laughter spread among the human leaders. It was not the laughter of fools. It was the laughter of men and women who had fought for survival their entire lives. The council envoy stiffened, his eyes narrowing. Human General stood. His face was scarred, his voice steady and strong. "You speak of rules as if they are sacred," he said. "But tell me, where were your rules when our ancestors fought against hunger, disease, and endless wars? Where were your codes when we struggled against nature itself, when storms, quakes, and fires tried to erase us? We survived not by obeying rules, but by breaking them, by making our own." The ambassador's glow dimmed. He raised his voice, his tone cutting with anger. "You do not understand. Without the council, there is only chaos. We have order because we have law. You cannot survive in the galaxy without it." The general leaned forward, his eyes unflinching. "Then we will survive the same way we always have, by refusing chains." Ripple of gasps spread through the chamber. Some humans felt fear. How could they speak to such powerful beings with such defiance? But most felt something else rising in their chests. Pride. The ambassador hissed, his voice low and dangerous. "You risk everything. If you defy us, fleets will descend upon your world. Your armies will burn, your people will fall to ash. Do you not fear us?" At that moment, a human scientist stood. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. "We do feel fear," she admitted. "But fear has never stopped us. Fear has shaped us. We learned to fight in the dark, to rise when crushed, to endure what others could not. We do not run from fear. We use it. That is why your rules cannot hold us." The council envoy realized then what the elders had seen all along. Humanity did not think like the rest of the galaxy. They did not see law as safety. They saw it as a cage. The meeting ended in silence. The council ambassador returned to his ship, fury in his heart. The humans had rejected their gift of order. They had chosen rebellion. When the envoy's words reached the council chambers far across the stars, outrage erupted. "They mock us," cried one leader. "They defy us," shouted another. Fleets were prepared, weapons charged, punishments planned, but the elders only lowered their ancient heads. Their voices trembled with warning. "We told you, these humans will not bow. They will not break. They will stand. And in standing, they will change everything." And so, above the small blue planet, the first seeds of war were planted. The galaxy had demanded obedience. Humanity had answered with laughter. The decision of humanity spread through the galaxy like fire in dry grass. For the first time in thousands of years, a young species had refused the Galactic Council. Entire worlds gasped at the news. Some admired Earth's courage. Others pitied their foolishness. But most believed the same thing. Humanity would be crushed. The Council wasted no time. They called humanity reckless, dangerous, and unfit for freedom. To them, defiance could not be tolerated. If one species disobeyed, others might follow. The order of the galaxy depended on obedience. And so, punishment was prepared. Above Earth, the sky darkened as warships arrived. The Council sent a fleet of shimmering vessels, their hulls glowing like silver blades. They were larger, faster, and more advanced than anything humans had ever seen. Entire nations on Earth trembled. Many believed the end had come, yet humanity did not surrender. Inside underground bunkers, in secret space stations, and in the hearts of countless men and women, humanity prepared to fight. Their ships were not elegant. They were not beautiful. They were forged of steel, heavy armor, and raw engines of fire. They had no grace, only power. To the Council, they looked like crude toys. To humanity, they were hope. When the first Council fleet descended into orbit, a message was sent across Earth. "This is our chance," the general said. "We must show them that humans do not break." The Council expected humans to fight with order, to meet them head-on, to follow the familiar patterns of war. But humans had never fought with rules. They fought with desperation, with cunning, with the instinct of survivors. The battle began with fire. Council ships unleashed beams of energy that split the night sky. Entire cities trembled as their power lit the heavens. But the humans did not scatter. They struck back. Their missiles roared upward like thunder. Their cannons spat flame. Their ships surged forward with reckless speed. One human pilot whispered a prayer before diving his fighter into the belly of a Council warship, releasing explosives at the last second before escaping the flames. Another crew shut off their ship's power, drifting, dark and silent until the enemy passed, then striking from the shadows. The Council commanders were shocked. These were not the tactics of civilized war. Humans cheated. They ambushed. They risked everything. They broke every rule the Council had written, and they won. One by one, the great silver ships of the Council fell. Some exploded in showers of fire. Others drifted, powerless, their crews stunned. The humans shouted in triumph as the impossible happened before their eyes. On the ground, millions of people watched the night sky blaze with fire. Fear turned into pride. Weakness turned into strength. For the first time, humanity saw itself not as a small, fragile species, but as a force the galaxy would never forget. When the battle ended, Earth still stood. The Council's fleet was shattered. Silence fell across the galaxy. Worlds that had obeyed in fear whispered among themselves, "If humans can resist, why can't we?" The Council tried to hide their shame, but news spread quickly. Everywhere, people spoke of Earth, the world that laughed at power, the people who broke the chains. The elders of the Council were silent for a long time. Finally, one of them spoke in a voice like old stone. "It begins," he said. "The rules are broken. The storm has come." And far below, on the small blue planet, humanity lifted its head proudly. They had faced the impossible, and they had endured. The galaxy had sent its first warning. Humanity had answered with fire. The smoke of battle still lingered above Earth, drifting in the void like ghosts. The Galactic Council's fleet had come, in pride and left in shame. Across the stars, the news spread faster than light, whispered in markets, shouted in streets, carried through secret channels. For the first time in living memory, a Council fleet had been defeated. Not by an ancient empire, not by a mighty alliance, but by a single young world called Earth. The galaxy trembled. On distant planets, rulers met in silence. They could hardly believe it. For centuries, the Council had been the law. Its fleets were said to be unstoppable, its rule eternal. Yet, against humans, who had only just begun to climb into space, the mighty Council had been humbled. Some species felt hope. They remembered their own chains, their own obedience forced upon them long ago. Quietly, in dark rooms, they whispered, "If the humans can resist, and why can't we?" Others felt fear. If the Council could be broken, then the galaxy itself could fall into chaos. Order was fragile, and now one stubborn world threatened to shatter it all. In the Council's great chambers, outrage burned like fire. Leaders argued, shouting across the hall. They must be crushed, One cried, "They are dangerous." Another roared, "If they remain free, every world will rise against us." But the elders, those ancient beings who had lived for ages, did not join the shouting. They sat in silence, their eyes heavy with sorrow. At last, one elder spoke in a voice so soft it silenced the hall. "You do not understand. The humans are not dangerous because of their weapons. They are dangerous because they do not believe in your rules. They do not think as you do. That is why you will never control them." The chamber fell quiet, but no one wanted to hear the truth. Plans for revenge continued. Fleets were rebuilt. Armies were prepared. The council swore that Earth would bow or burn, but out in the galaxy, not everyone agreed. On trading stations and mining colonies, alien workers raised their heads with new courage. On enslaved worlds, chains felt lighter as hope stirred. Even among some council officers, doubt began to grow. They had seen the fire of humanity and they could not forget it. Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity celebrated, but not with arrogance. Families gathered, holding each other close. Soldiers returned home, scarred but alive. Cities sang songs of pride, not because they had destroyed their enemy, but because they had proven something to themselves. They were not helpless. The leaders of Earth met once more. Their voices were strong, yet filled with caution. They knew the council would not stop. They knew more battles would come, but now they also knew something greater. "We have shown the galaxy who we are," one leader said. "We do not follow rules written by others. We write our own." These words spread across Earth and then into the stars. Human merchants repeated them on distant worlds. Human soldiers carried them into the void. And aliens who had never dared to dream of freedom found strength in those simple words. The council called humanity reckless. They called them dangerous. They called them a threat to order. But to countless others, humanity had become something else. A symbol, a spark, a reminder that chains could be broken. The galaxy watched, and for the first time in thousands of years, the future was uncertain. The old order was trembling. The council's grip was weakening, and in the center of it all stood humanity, small, young, and fragile compared to the ancient powers, yet burning brighter than any of them. The elders looked to the stars and whispered the truth only they dared to speak. The galaxy has changed forever. The rules are no longer enough. And far away, Earth continued to prepare, not for surrender, but for the storm to come. The council could not forgive. To them, humanity's defiance was not just rebellion. It was a disease that could spread. If one world broke the rules, others might follow. The council's order, built over thousands of years, was cracking. And so, they branded humanity with a single word: outlaw. The council declared Earth forbidden. No species was allowed to trade with humans. No ship was allowed to give them fuel or supplies. No planet was allowed to offer them shelter. They believed isolation would starve humanity until they crawled back, begging for mercy. But the council misunderstood the very heart of humans. Humanity had lived through isolation before. They had built nations from nothing, carved homes from deserts, survived storms, and endured famines. Where others saw walls, humans saw challenges. Where others gave up, humans pushed harder. When the council closed their gates, humanity built new ones. Engineers on Earth worked day and night, designing ships that could travel farther, faster, and carry more than ever before. They mapped hidden paths through asteroid belts, gas clouds, and abandoned sectors, routes the council would never expect. What the galaxy called forbidden space, humans called opportunity. Merchants laughed at the council's bans and opened their own markets. Soldiers who once fought against each other now stood shoulder to shoulder, guarding convoys that crossed the stars. Smugglers, rebels, and dreamers from alien worlds secretly joined them, finding in humanity something they had long forgotten: hope. The council sent warnings. The humans ignored them. The council sent patrols. The humans outsmarted them. Again and again, humanity showed they did not need permission to live free. But Earth was not just building for itself. Humanity remembered the whispers from other worlds, the voices of those still chained under the council's grip. Some begged for help in secret. Others sent signals of rebellion, faint but desperate. And humanity listened. When a small mining colony sent a message of distress, the council prepared to punish it. But before their fleet could arrive, human ships appeared first. They fought not for land, not for resources, but for strangers they had never met. They stood in the path of the council and refused to move. The miners expected to be abandoned. Instead, they found human soldiers at their side saying simply, "You called, we came." It was not the way of the council. The council gave aid only in exchange for obedience. Humanity asked for nothing but friendship. That simple difference shook the galaxy more than any weapon could. World by world, whispers became voices. Voices became shouts. Chains that had held for centuries began to strain. Entire species began to dream of something dangerous, something the council feared most. Freedom. The council grew desperate. They painted humans as savages, reckless beasts who would destroy the galaxy with chaos. They told the stars that Earth was not a liberator, but a threat. But the truth spread faster than lies. Every fleet the council sent returned beaten or humiliated. Every threat they gave was answered not with fear, but with laughter. On Earth, the people knew what they had started. They were not blind. They knew every victory brought more enemies. They knew every ally gained meant another battle ahead. Yet still they pressed forward. A leader of Earth stood before a crowd. His voice carried through transmitters across the stars. "We did not ask for this war," he said. "But we will not run from it. We will not let others suffer while we stand idle. The council thinks their rules bind us, but humanity does not follow rules, we make them. And together we will write new ones." The crowd roared, and across the galaxy billions listened, their hearts trembling with both fear and hope. The storm was rising. The old order was crumbling. And at the center of it all, humanity stood unafraid. The galaxy was no longer quiet. Where once the galactic council ruled with unshakable control, now cracks spread through its walls. The word Earth carried like thunder. In markets, in barracks, in secret meetings, people spoke of humans, the ones who laughed at power, the ones who refused to kneel. The council tried harder to hold their grip. Fleets patrolled, spies hunted, and laws were shouted louder than ever before. But the louder they shouted, the more worlds stopped listening. Humanity had done the unthinkable. They had shown everyone that the council could bleed. On planets once silent with fear, rebellions began to spark. Some were small, workers refusing to bow, miners keeping their resources for themselves, soldiers abandoning their posts. But others grew into flames. Entire colonies declaring independence, banners of freedom flying where the council's crest once stood. And at the heart of it, humanity stood like a torch in the darkness. The council could not ignore it any longer. They summoned Earth to the Grand Hall, the vast chamber at the center of the galaxy, where laws were carved into walls older than humanity itself. They demanded an envoy. They wanted answers. They wanted control. A single human ship traveled through hostile space, past blockades and warnings, until it landed on the polished surface of the council's world. From it stepped the envoy, a man scarred by war, dressed not in royal robes, but in simple uniform. He carried no crown, no weapon, only the weight of his people's defiance. The chamber was filled with thousands. Alien voices rose in anger as the human walked to the center platform. Above him, elders watched from their thrones, their eyes glowing with age and judgment. "You are destroying order," one leader shouted. "You are teaching rebellion," another accused. "You are breaking the very rules that hold the galaxy together." The human stood silently until their voices faded. Then he raised his head, his voice calm but steady, echoing through the hall. "Order without freedom is not peace," he said. "You call it law, we call it chains. You call it stability, we call it silence. For too long you have forced the galaxy to live inside cages, but humans do not live in cages, we break them." The words cut through the hall like fire. Some shouted in fury, others fell into silence, their hearts stirred. Many had never heard such defiance spoken in this place. One elder leaned forward, his ancient voice trembling. "You will bring chaos." Do you not see? Without rules, there will be war, suffering, endless destruction. The human looked up at the elder. His scarred face softened, but his eyes burned with truth. There has always been war. There has always been suffering. Your rules did not stop it. They only hid it. We do not fear chaos because from chaos we were born. From storms, from fire, from endless struggle, humanity learned to rise. We do not fear the dark. We light our own flame. A heavy silence followed. Every corner of the chamber felt the weight of his words. For the first time in centuries, doubt spread across the grand hall. Leaders looked at each other and wondered, had they been blind all along? But the council's pride was deep. Their voices rose again, filled with anger and fear. They shouted that humanity would be crushed, that the galaxy would return to order. The human envoy did not argue further. He simply turned, his steps echoing, against the ancient stone and left the chamber without bowing. His silence spoke louder than any threat. Outside, across the galaxy, the message spread. The council had tried to shame humanity, but instead, humanity had shamed the council. The words, "We break cages," became a cry of rebellion. And on world after world, chains began to snap. The order that had stood for thousands of years was shattering, and nothing could stop it now. At the center of the storm stood humanity, scarred, stubborn, unbroken, and the galaxy watched as the impossible became inevitable. The galaxy had changed forever. The halls of the Galactic Council, once proud and unshakable, now echoed with uncertainty. Worlds that had obeyed for centuries were rising. Fleets once loyal now questioned their orders. And in the center of it all stood humanity, small in number, young in age, yet unstoppable in will. Earth had survived every test, every attack, every threat the galaxy had sent. Their ships had soared through enemy fleets, their soldiers had fought against impossible odds, and their leaders had spoken truths that no one had dared to say. Humanity had not only endured, they had inspired. Across the stars, whispers became voices. Voices became roars. Species that had lived in silence began to dream. They dreamed of freedom, of choice, of living without chains. And they remembered, the humans, the species who laughed at power, who did not follow rules, who made their own. The council realized too late that fear alone could not hold the galaxy. Weapons could destroy cities, fleets could scatter planets, but the spark of courage could never be extinguished. Humanity had lit that spark, and it spread faster than any fleet or fleet's fire. On Earth, people celebrated, but their celebration was quiet and determined. They did not see themselves as heroes. They were survivors, as they always had been. They were builders, fighters, thinkers. They were human, and they knew the work was far from over. In the council chambers, the elders finally spoke openly. Their voices were heavy with age and wisdom. "The humans have shown us what we forgot," one said. "Strength is not obedience. Power is not fear. True order comes from respect, from courage, from choice." The council's laws, once absolute, began to crumble. Fleets returned home, unsure of their commands. Governors hesitated. Soldiers refused to fire on planets where humans and allies now stood as protectors. The galaxy, for the first time in millennia, was free to choose its own path. A human ambassador stood once more in the grand hall, this time welcomed, not threatened. He spoke not of conquest, but of vision. "The galaxy is not a cage. It is a garden," he said, "and every world has the right to grow in its own way. We do not ask for permission. We do not demand obedience. We offer alliance, friendship, and the courage to stand free." For many in the hall, the words were revolutionary. For some, they were frightening, but none could ignore them. Humanity had rewritten the rules simply by living them. And so, new laws began to form, not carved into stone, not forced by fear, but written in the hearts of the galaxy's people. Freedom, choice, and courage became values no species could deny. Humans did not impose them. They demonstrated them. And the galaxy learned. On distant planets, children learned stories of Earth, not as a war planet, not as a conqueror, but as a beacon. Teachers told of the humans who refused chains. Elders whispered the lesson. If one small world dares to rise, the galaxy itself can change. Back on Earth, people looked at the stars, their hearts steady. The council still existed, still powerful, still wary, but humanity no longer feared it. They had faced the storm and walked through it unbroken. A leader addressed the people from the steps of a great hall. "We did not follow rules," he said. "We did not kneel. We made our own. And now, the galaxy has learned the same truth we always knew. Humans do not follow rules. We make them." The crowd erupted in cheers, their voices echoing across cities, oceans, and deserts. Across the galaxy, allies joined them in celebration, sending messages of hope and solidarity. And as the twin suns of Earth set over the horizon, humanity stood proud, not just as survivors, not just as fighters, but as teachers of a new era. The Bjar Council would never be the same. The galaxy would never be the same. And the lesson was clear. Rules could bind some, but courage, will, and determination could bind the hearts of countless worlds together in freedom. The humans had changed everything. The galaxy had learned. Humans do not follow rules, they make them, and nothing could ever undo that truth.